Welcome back to another Mackem in the Middle podcast. We are back with another reaction after another Sunderland League game. Obviously, last weekend did end in a draw, but it felt like a defeat after two late goals from Fleetwood. We got a win against Wigan midweek in the Cup, but it was back to the Stadium of Light yesterday to face a side that have been in good form, Bolton Wanderers. We did come away 1-0 winners in that game, and I'm joined by Michael and probably a very tired Kyle as well.
Good morning. Happy to be here.
Yeah. What time is it there for you now, Kyle? Because we seem to do these earlier and earlier every week.
Right. Well, my alarm is set for 5:55 a.m. So that's when I asked you for 5 extra minutes so I could get the coffee going. So I might have to put myself on mute here in a second and go grab that. But
yeah,
it's I'm feeling good now, energized by the performance yesterday.
Yeah.
Can I just point out, I think Kyle deserves like an award for his dedication to this podcast.
Little trophy.
If he gets up earlier every single time,
but yeah,
I could not do that.
My wife truly doesn't understand, and I don't think I understand either, but it's fun. I enjoy it.
It would be harder after a loss, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If we start losing,
if he tried this when we were losing games in the Premier League or that Championship season, oh god.
Yeah, I can't say it. I
can't wait to get up at 5 a.m. to talk about Sunderland losing to Preston North End. Brilliant.
Doing quite well, to be honest. Preston at the minute, I think, aren't they? I think it was 8 or 9 games unbeaten after I think it was a draw yesterday. But did knock me out of an accumulator when we bet 365 loss. We'll not talk about that too much. But Michael 1-0 yesterday, and obviously we'll get onto the game and everything that happened in it. But the main thing is another 3 points after a slight off. I don't want to say off game, a slight off 10 minutes really against Fleetwood last week that ultimately cost us 2 points.
Yeah, well, let's see how long I last before I try to lead on to a point that you're inevitably going to have brought up, and then I'll segue into it again. But yeah, that was the response we wanted from last week, and obviously, I'll quickly touch the Wigan game. I think is one in midweek that psychologically, I think that's a big win for Sunderland because even though it's a cup game, it's the top two League One clash, and I think it says a lot about Wigan's. I think I've seen a couple of Wigan fans on social media saying that they'd be concerned if they get a couple of injuries, whereas Sunderland's squad depth seems to be going from strength to strength. As for the Bolton game, I mean, I was at Fleetwood, so I'm trying to forget about that as much as I possibly can. But to be fair, the Bolton game itself was one that, as everyone knows, I'm someone. Here's me segueing probably. I'm someone who usually champions clean sheets a lot, but I'd written off a clean sheet in the game because I just thought Bolton, the way they play, the way they press, they're expansive. They get down the wings, they create opportunities down the centre. They do a lot of different things, and I'll tell you, for me, that's easily the best side I've seen Sunderland come up against this season. Bolton had a good number of, certainly in the second half. I know we'll get onto it more later, but they had a lot of chances and ones that they should have put away. So for me, to keep a clean sheet in that game and to win the game, even though it was an ugly and gritty performance, that I don't care. That's the sort of game where I thought Bolton, put it this way, Bolton will cause a lot of teams problems. And if they're in the promotion mix, I don't think people should be surprised.
Yeah. And I think it's completely off topic as well. But I mean, obviously when you're watching the streams on Sunderland, Frankie has his own catchphrase about the cameras. And I think we'll get onto it shortly. Is definitely our catchphrase on this podcast. That does creep up a lot, that phrase. And obviously there's a Bolton reaction podcast, but just kind of looking back briefly at the Wigan game as well, Kyle. And I know Michael said it there, Wigan fans are kind of a little concerned about, if, say, one of their players gets an injury, they haven't really got the depth. You look at the team that started for Sunderland against Wigan, you've got Broadhead, Pritchard, who obviously started the game yesterday as well. We've got a lot of options there. And I think it's probably the first time in League One where if pretty much any of our start 11 players get injured, you wouldn't be worried about the replacement coming in.
Yeah, and that's why, as we started this cup run, and we've made it pretty far. We've done very well, but I think it's very important for our squad depth and growth, and just kind of keep those types of players happy, keep them fresh. And I think that Wigan game is a perfect opportunity for that. We got to see a lot of Broadhead, we got to see a lot of Pritchard and those types of players, and I think it's only going to pay off down the road. Sure, I mean I think we're QPR next. I mean there's a chance we could even have that game and another game. I think QPR is pretty good, but I think it's a great opportunity to keep those players fresh because just like we saw yesterday with Sirkin going down, which hopefully everything's all right there. But Huggins was able to come in. Huggins got I think a full 90 under his belt, right, against Wigan.
So yeah.
Yeah, and he came on and looked fresh, looked good. So it's just those little things that Wigan doesn't have the depth that we have, and that was apparent in that cup game. Whereas we for the first time finally recruited well enough to have probably a solid starting 22. Really, top to bottom, we have a decent position player waiting in the depths. So.
Yeah, realistically, there's 2 starting 11 Sunderland could field that would probably both finish in the top half of League One as well.
I would like to say so, yeah. And there's probably some truth to that. I think we have a lot of skill, a lot of talent, and a lot of, I think, hunger too. It seems like everyone wants to be there, which is we definitely could not say that about our previous squads.
Yeah. We'll just quickly look through the team that did start yesterday against Bolton. I don't think it was any surprise really as to the starting 11. Obviously Hoffman, Winchester, Flanagan, Doyle and Sirkin. Obviously Flanagan back from suspension. Luke O'Nien, Daniel, Aidan McGeady, Alex Pritchard in for the injured Gooch, albeit I don't think that's a serious injury. Elliot Embleton and of course Ross Stewart. And I suppose it's a good thing, Michael, when you're looking at the teams, and so I think you do the fan hub stuff as well, you kind of try to predict the lineup where you might get the starting 11 wrong that you predict you'll see, but there's a good reason for it. Broadhead did very well against Wigan midweek. Could he have possibly started? Probably. You've got like Aidan O'Brien, who wasn't even in the matchday squad yesterday. You've got a lot of options there that it is very hard to predict who will start because everyone's playing well.
Well, that's what you want, isn't it? And I think you both touched on it just a minute ago that if you look at it, we have 2 squads, both of which could be in the top half of League One. And for me, that says a lot that even the fringe players would walk into a lot, without sounding too arrogant, they would walk into a lot of sides in this league. That even just the fringe players that aren't even getting the game for us. And and it's all about competition. So the likes of Broadhead took his goal very, very well in midweek. Huggins obviously had to come on yesterday, but he did very well for O'Nien's goal against Wigan. So there is promise there. Aidan O'Brien's got a hat-trick against Blackpool. There's players there that are chomping at the bit, ready to come in. And the good thing about that is that even if they don't get minutes, if they continue to maintain the hunger and maintain the positive attitude they're showing at the minute, that's going to force a lot of the players that are starting to raise their standards and importantly keep them high. That's the crucial thing, and that's for me been something that Sunderland have seriously lacked over the previous 5 or 6 seasons, where players just haven't had high standards, and that's one of the reasons we've struggled so much. So hopefully, this is a sign that if players keep their standards high, we know we're not going to win every game, we know that, but in this league we should be winning at least 3/4 of our games, in my opinion. So if you keep the standard high, yeah, exactly. I mean, the more games, especially at home, the more games you win at home, then effectively you don't need to win a handful of your away games to give yourself a shot of the top 2. So the higher the standards are kept and the competition is there and the harmony that's there, the better.
Yeah. Well, obviously finished 1-0 yesterday, Kyle, and there's so many games that we come on after and talk about it and question how we've kind of scraped the win, in the end. Bolton, like Michael said earlier, probably the best side that we've played without actually doing too much in the final third. But Sunderland had chances. You look back at that Alex Pritchard chance, and luckily, he's missed that. It didn't really count for too much in the end. We've still won the game, still got the 3 points. But we really need to start taking the extra chances that we get and just kill these teams off, before the 97th minute.
Yeah, and I think it's just testament to that. We still haven't played our best football yet, which is, I guess, good at this point of the season. It'd be different if it was, January or February, and we're still saying that. But I think there's still a lot of room for that, and I think those missed opportunities are just kind of fuel these other players to okay, I want to get my first goal. I want to get, I want to, get on the sheet again. So yeah, so many opportunities. I would say probably 3 or 4 opportunities that we could have added 2 to 3 more goals, and it's only a matter of time before those start to click. We're getting ourselves in really, really good positions, which is another, not that keep harping back on previous seasons, but in previous seasons it'd be Wyke alone in the box, no one else making runs to try to get up there. And I noticed yesterday 09 was playing really high up. That's probably because he got that goal last time. I'd like some Giddy and Pritchard up there as well. So it's just a matter of focus and just being clinical in front of those. When we get those chances, we're going to create more chances, which means hopefully we'll have some more practice at putting those away and making this a lot less nervy of a 90-minute affair for sure.
Yeah. And just on Bolton, Michael, I put a tweet out when I got home, which was about an hour and a half after the game finished, because the traffic in Sunderland after a match day is absolutely shocking. But I got home, put a tweet out, and Bolton fans seem to like it. And I suppose I'll probably tone it down a little bit for the podcast. But it was essentially on the lines of, Bolton best side we played this season, very well drilled, and couldn't finish a dinner. I'll say instead. But realistically, that was the case, wasn't it? A better side, better in the final third. We could have been 2-3, maybe even 4-1 losers in that game.
Well, put it this way: if you go through all the teams we played in the league so far this season, so if you look at, I'll try and touch on it quickly. Wigan had patches where they did all right, but for the large part were ineffective. MK Dons, kind of the same thing. Patches didn't look effective, but they also did give us a little bit of a game towards the end. Burton, we were robbed there. Wimbledon, I thought weren't particularly good. Wickham, again, maybe had 1 10-minute spell at the second half, or even at the start of that game, but again, didn't ultimately do that much. Accrington, at the time we played them, obviously was a top 2 clash, but I thought Accrington, all they were seeming interested in doing is time wasting when we were level. Yeah. We've got Fleetwood, who I think got into the game last 15 minutes because we allowed them to do it pretty much. But Bolton, like you've just said there, Bolton, I think probably the main reason we did keep it clean sheet is because Bolton didn't finish the chances that they did. But to be fair, bear in mind, Sunderland, I think, actually, I don't know, that second half was probably the most nerve-wracking second half I've experienced for quite some time.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
And there's one thing I would criticise Sunderland with, is the fact that every time we kept trying to get the ball out of defence and trying to get up the field, we kept on trying to outskill everyone and trying to do stupid little dance moves and all that, and we ended up losing the ball in needless situations, which invited pressure back onto our back line. So I wish we'd been a little bit better with that. But as you said, though, like I said, honestly, I said before the game, this will be a really tough game. Bolton go for it, and again, out of all the sides that are promoted, Bolton's the one that I think would have higher aspirations realistically than make sure we don't get relegated or consolidate, because they will give teams a go. And I mark my words, and if this falls flat on my face in a few months and I'm wrong, so be it. But I think they will take points off top sides this season. Mark my words.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. And I've seen a lot of people on Twitter obviously talking about the game afterwards, and it's quite easy to criticise a performance after a victory way more than it is to criticise performance after a defeat, because things do kind of get thrown out of proportion a little bit. But there was a lot of people claiming that might have been the worst performance that we've had this season, and I suppose in some aspects it was. I think if you look at the first 15 minutes especially, Kyle, Sunderland just couldn't get out of their own half. You look at the 2 centre halves that we had playing, obviously Flanagan and Doyle. Again, little catchphrase, and we'll get onto them later. But Doyle, when he first came to Sunderland, he loved that cross-field pass, and he would do it 3-4 times a game and succeed at it, and would create attack that way. He tried that early stages in the first half. It never came off once, I don't think. Flanagan was very frustrating to watch on the ball yesterday. I think he pondered a lot, and I think there was one passage of play where it went from Doyle to Flanagan to Doyle to Flanagan to Hoffman to Doyle, and we just couldn't get out of our own half in the first 15 minutes.
Yeah, and I think that's credit to Bolton that they showed up wanting to play, and not just sitting back and allowing us to eat up basically our own half the field. So, yeah, and just like what Michael said, they're very well drilled. I mean, they didn't open up very many lanes for us. They didn't keep us out, open wide on the wings so that Doyle could make those types of passes. So, credit to them. It's, it wasn't maybe the most pleasing thing on the eye, but it did look like a real football match, which was nice. And, we'll probably only see that against a handful of teams in this league, and Bolton's one of them. And especially at home, that's just where we just can't get frustrated, and we just have to stay patient, because as soon as we start trying to press the issue, they're ready for the counter. You had I think it's Afolayan on Bolton. I mean, my God, what a good player. I mean, and so if Doyle was trying that cross pass, it was probably going right to him, and then he's probably breaking down the wing, and it's a one-on-one against Winchester, right? So I think it was a lesson in patience for us just to say, hey, let's not force the issue. We're at home. Let's absorb this a little bit and just wait for opportunities.
Yeah.
Do you know? Well, sorry, and Robert, do you notice the speed in which Bolton went forward? There was occasionally like one passing across the field,
Especially down the left.
and then straight
Yep.
down the wing in our third. I'm like, Jesus Christ, they go quick.
Yep.
Now, I think one of the things I noticed as well a lot when Bolton were attacking and especially counter-attacking was they mainly seemed to focus down our right, obviously their left-hand side, obviously the side that McGeady was playing on. And I think a lot of sides will probably try to target that a little bit because McGeady just, I don't know what it is. There's just something about McGeady in a defensive sense that he just seems to get in the way at times. I'll go for you, Michael.
Well, I'll answer that with a question. Do you think, in that sense, then we missed Gooch? Because Gooch is the type of, because as much as and yes, this is me sticking up for Gooch here, which is like an unsung thing, because I'm usually one of Gooch's biggest critics. But Gooch does. I think McGeady tends to be allowed to get more of almost a free role, and that Gooch will drop back and do the defensive and ugly side of the game. That's just not McGeady's thing. And now he's improved at it. Don't get me wrong. Over the last couple of seasons, I think he has got better at it, but it's still not his sort of thing, really. So yeah, I mean, I can see what you mean. Like almost every attack they were trying was going down their left hand side and obviously our right. And thankfully they've come up against Winchester, who I thought was very, very good, and obviously has been very good so far this season. But I do get your point. I just wonder whether because I've listened to a few other podcasts and they were saying that we missed Gooch, and at first I didn't quite get what they meant, but when you put it like that, it actually does sound of it. I think maybe that's what that's been alluded to, in that Gooch will help out Winchester and you'll get forward, but not at the expense of leaving us completely exposed unless we absolutely have to.
Yeah. And I think the thing is with McGeady as well, like I don't want to do him like a disservice here because I don't think he had a bad game yesterday. He wasn't great, but he's what 36 years old now. He doesn't have that yard of pace that Gooch has. So when a switch is made by Bolton, you get Gooch. Often he gives away stupid fouls, granted, but he's very quick to get in front of the man and kind of stop any real threat. The players can get back in a position there. But as McGeady kind of ponders over a little bit. And on the other side, on the offensive side, I think what we lacked yesterday as well with Gooch is I don't really think we had anyone on the pitch capable of carrying the ball forward, as a counter-attacking threat, I suppose, Kyle.
Yeah, I think we saw a little bit of it from Sirkin on a few of those runs, but I mean, you shouldn't have to be relying on your left back or right back for that. So it's just, yeah, we definitely missed Gooch there, and I think that kind of, I think it's good that we have different options for one, because Gooch isn't going to be able to play every single game, and this kind of gives Johnson an idea of, okay, when Gooch is on the field, how can we best utilize him? What were we missing, and how can we focus in on capitalizing on that when he is on the field? Because I think we pushed Embleton a little bit more out wide, and he definitely was a little bit more anonymous, and I'm sure we'll get onto that. But yeah, no, just like you guys mentioned, I mean, Gooch is there. He provides that great track back. He just he never stops. And sometimes you do need somebody to be out there kind of like an enforcer to kind of make those fouls and break up play a little bit and kind of get under their skin. And that's what Gooch excels at. Yeah.
Well, despite the first 15 minutes of Sunderland just not really being able to get out the one half, Sunderland did take the lead. And it was the two fullbacks that combined for the goal. Obviously, Dennis Sirkin on the left, we've mentioned, he's up and down the pitch a lot, and I think he's definitely improving with each game. And one thing that I did say about him a few weeks ago was if he does want to become like a top League One left back at the moment, obviously he has potential to go even further, but his final ball had to improve. And I thought it wasn't bad yesterday. Obviously, he's got the assist for the goal. He's crossed it into Winchester, who admittedly at the time I thought he'd put it over the bar because it was very close to being over the bar. I think he hit it just about as high into the net as he possibly could have. But again, Michael, just Carl Winchester.
Winchester, just what a boy. That's it. It's just incredible how he's. I'm struggling to find words for it because at the start of the season we said, "Oh, Winchester's going to be one of your standout players at right back." Then I just don't know what you would have been smoking or taking him. But it's fair play to him. He's got 3 goals I think in the league. Yeah. So and what's incredible is that he has not looked out of place at right back, and it might even get to the point like the 09 2.0 where he's just going to be playing at right back so often that we then start to think of him primarily as a right back who can play in midfield rather than vice versa. So I mean, Winchester. I mean, I'll quickly touch on the Sirkin thing. I think Sirkin, and I think I've seen a few other people mention this. The aggressive run he showed for the goal was really, really good. He continued. He started to run at their back line, ran past their fullback, ran into the 6-yard box, and then drilled it across the box, which basically confused Bolton, I would imagine. And then Winchester right place, right time. And because Sirkin was occupying a lot of the Bolton defenders, it left Winchester a bit more exposed at the back post. I'm sure Bolton will feel they should have done better defensively, but Winchester, what can you say? He gets forward. He's got the odd goal here and there. He stops crosses. He's just not look out of place at all. And fair play to him. More power to him.
Yeah. Well, it was 1-0 at half time. And I think, the chances in the first half, especially for both sides, were very limited. I think Stewart had quite a tame effort on his left foot, saved by the keeper. And again, I think there was another one that Stewart had from a Winchester cross. Again, fullbacks getting forward, getting the ball into the box. But it was a very tough watch of a first half, I suppose, and realistically a tough watch of a game in general as well. And we'll get on to the second half now, Kyle. Realistically, it was just an onslaught from Bolton.
Right. If you were to tell me to pick out, one or two events or plays from that second half, I can maybe think of one late on with the Jaku, not pulling the trigger on a shot. But outside of that, I really don't. It was almost just like a blur. I think it's just because my nerves were so high, thinking like, oh, please, like, let's just get another goal or let's not concede. But the few standouts I did see in that second half, Flanagan. It's just, I never would have thought in a million years that I would be so happy to see him back in the team sheet. But you can see how much more organized we are with him back there. And he made some great plays, just really good at reading the flow of play.
Yeah.
And so I just remember a lot of kind of last ditch efforts, a lot of last ditch tackles. 09 was really busy, really physical, helped break up plays a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's a testament to our organization or I think it's more so just Bolton. They were just really good. I mean, they played really well. They were physical, especially on their back line. They were just big. They were just, because I feel like in League One, you're either big or you're either technical, and you're never both. I think Bolton's as close as kind of being that both
Apart
category.
from Stewart, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
Apart from ourselves, because we're massive.
Yeah, yes. So, but that's just kind of the trend I've noticed in League One, and I still think Bolton. I think that is the best side that we've played so far. I think and I think now we are at that point in the season where the cream kind of rises to the top. So I think in these next few weeks, especially after Tuesday, having to come off a physical Saturday, coming to Tuesday, I think things will definitely start to separate here in the next week or two.
Yeah. And I'm not sure the best way to kind of put this, Michael, but, I've mentioned about how we say Bolton are probably the best team we've played this season and how some fans seem to think that was the worst performance from a Sunderland point of view. Do you think them 2 points are sort of over-exaggerated, both on both ends to the point where Sunderland were poor and Bolton were good, but Bolton weren't excellent and Sunderland weren't awful, if you know where I'm coming from? It's quite a hard way to describe it, but...
Yeah, I think I know what you mean. Do you mean as anything people are exaggerating how bad they felt we were and how good Bolton were? So in other words, Bolton are good. Yeah, I get what you mean. I can see how it would come across that way. I do think that Bolton. I mean, obviously, look. I mean, you could argue that because we're saying that by far the best team we played this season, but you could argue that's not a high standard to break because a lot of the team, without trying to sound disrespectful, but it's going to sound disrespectful. There's a lot of the teams we've played have had probably 10, 15-minute patches, but apart from that, haven't really done all that much. In terms of whether it's the worst performance of the season, I would still say Wimbledon probably was, but only because I think Bolton are a better side than what Wimbledon were. Wimbledon, most of the time, were sort of content to sit deep and defend their own box until they obviously had to go for it later on in the game. Bolton were not afraid to do that. Bolton we're basically willing to come at us from minute one, which again was what I expected that they would do. And as I said earlier, when they come up against, look at it this way, they played Wigan in the cup, I think, and only just lost on penalties. They've still got to go to Wigan, they've still got to host Wigan. That those games will be competitive. I think when it comes down to it, Sunderland, I think they conceded a little few too many chances for my liking. But again, realistically, we were always going to do that against a side that is so aggressive and isn't afraid to really give us a game either. I will point that out because when other teams have tried to have a go at us, they've always been a bit overcautious when they get in the final third because they know the quality that we've got going forward. if that makes sense. And I think Bolton were just like, screw it, let's go for it. I mean, Accrington's a good example. Even if Accrington occasionally did try to go at us, but they left themselves so exposed with almost a 2v1 situation with that much of a high line they were playing. Bolton had a little bit less naivety in that sense. As for whether Sunderland were awful, I think Bolton missed, like I said, Bolton missed a few chances, but I did think Sunderland did hold their shape fairly well when we had to late on in the game. And obviously, and especially, it was especially pleasing because obviously after last week, I was kind of in my head going 1-1, 1-1, 1-1, and thankfully it never came. So I can see what you mean. It's kind of in between the two extremes rather. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think we could very well be. Hopefully, we'll be looking back at that victory and think, you know what, forget the performance. Biggest 3 points we've had.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, obviously finished 1-0, Kyle. And I said it. A lot of people said it. People on the radio said it. Last season, previous seasons, we wouldn't have won that 1-0. Would have conceded a goal at some point. Maybe wouldn't have even scored the goal. If that was Callum McFadzean crossing to Max Powell or something, God knows where that ball would have ended up.
Yeah.
Don't make me think
Gosh.
about that.
It's got chills.
Yeah, but ultimately it finished 1-0. We've got the 3 points. I think we are still second in the league on goal difference. And I think if we win, well, I'm not sure what the game in hand is now, but without obviously getting too far in advance, if we win the game in hand, you're 4 points clear of the automatic promotion spot. Still 40 games left to go or something, but still, you've got to start somewhere. But it's a good sign that Sunderland come out of a game like that where people will question how good Sunderland were. People will question the chances that we've given away and the finishing from a Sunderland point of view. It's a good sign to come out of that with a win.
Absolutely. Yeah, because, and it's funny when people say, oh, this could have been our worst performance. If Djaku and Pritchard both take their chances a little bit better, we could easily be saying this was our best performance, right? And we'd be looking at 3-0, So it's funny how, I mean, those margins are just so slim. And like we've mentioned before, the fact that we're able to grind out, it's a lot easier, I think, to learn and be receptive and to grow with a very close win. I mean, a loss, sure, you can learn a lot in losing or drawing, but winning, you at least kind of maintain that optimism from the fans and the optimism in the dressing room as well. So it helps to be able to grind out these wins, because especially as the weather starts to turn, it's going to start to get a little bit colder. We're probably going to be seeing a lot more 1-0. And I feel like our first half or this first quarter of the schedule has been pretty front loaded. I feel like we've played a lot of top competition so far. And, I could just be talking out my ass there and not really seeing who everyone else has played. But I feel like we've played a lot of the contenders right off the bat, and we fared very well. Taking those points early in this season is only going to help our cause later in the season.
Yeah. And obviously, I think we've still got, Portsmouth is, that's next weekend.
Yes,
Still got the likes of Charlton, Sheffield Wednesday to play, albeit I don't think them 3 teams have started particularly well. But again, look at Blackpool, they're playing championship football now, and I think, this time last year, you wouldn't have even considered Blackpool as a promotion rival. But we'll get into the player ratings as we do, and we'll start with Hoffman, who I went with a 7. It was a double save in the first half, which I think Sunderland tweeted at the time and said he spilt it, which I think was harsh, because I think there was either a deflection on it or, a defender kind of moved his leg out the way and you saw it last second. But it was a good double save in the first half and then a good save from a header in the second as well. His distribution's tired, and I mentioned it in a previous podcast as well. He has a hell of an arm on him. He can throw the ball.
Yep.
I think he reached Ross Stewart on the halfway line with one of his throws. So yeah, I went with a 7. And Kyle, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I would say that's fair. I'd love to give him an 8. It's his first clean sheet, especially at home. That's really big. But he looks like he belongs. I guess I hate it because Burge played very well. Burge has been really well. Even Patterson was okay as well. But it's just so shallow. But when you looked at Burge, he just didn't really instill me with any confidence. Whereas for some reason Hoffman, maybe it's that German chiseled jaw, but it's just something about him. I just look back and be like, oh yeah, we're in good hands.
He's the one.
So yeah. Yeah, I think 7's fair. I think great for him to get that clean sheet. Hopefully more to come.
Yeah, Michael?
Well, I would say the reason that he stills with more confidence because he looks like 11'7". So, that can probably help a little bit. On the ratings, yes, I agree. Full hat trick of 7s. I think that Hoffman, he obviously was a bit nervous against Accrington, if you remember. His distribution occasionally was a little bit sloppy. At Fleetwood, really good and continued that trend yesterday. And I think the more he plays, the better he's going to get. He made saves when he had to. He was reassuring when balls came into the box. It's just it's those little calming presence. So for me, yeah, I can't disagree with the rating.
Yeah. Winchester got the goal, ultimately won the game, and since he's playing as a defender, he kept a clean sheet as well. Which if you were playing fantasy football, you'd get points for that as well. So I suppose you've got to incorporate that in as well. So I went with a 9. Again, don't really know what he could have done more to get a 10, possibly a brace, hat-trick, I don't know. But yeah, I'll just go with a 9, Kyle.
Yep. Just another week where I just love watching him play. It's just, he's so fun. It's just his energy, his enthusiasm, his mix of like 4 or 5 different celebrations that he was going through as he scored that. It was just great. And yeah, he was pretty close to skying that as well. But the fact that he was there, in the right position shows that Johnson's teaching these things on the training pitch, right? Because we've seen that before. A well-driven boss across the mouth of the goal, and there's maybe skips past one person, but then there's no one on the backside to put it home. And he was, all of a sudden the camera panned over, and it's like, oh well, there he is, and he just nice little tapped right in, and yeah, love to see it. I'd say 9 as well. He just keeps getting better, which is for someone in this stage of his career is really exciting to see.
It is. Michael.
I would go slightly lower just with an 8 because I felt there was 1 or 2 occasions he was caught a little bit out of position, but that's me being very, very hypercritical. In general, you two have covered it. So all I'll say is Winnie Esther. That's it.
Yeah. Moving on to the centre halves, and I think this is kind of making me second guess kind of what I'm going to say a little bit. Because again, I think Doyle, he set the standard very high at the start of the season. His passing was excellent. That crossfield switch was excellent. And a lot of our attacking play came from them passes. Yesterday, again, like I said, I think he attempted it 4, maybe 5 times in the game, and maybe it came off once. I think one was up to Ross Stewart. Did the basics well. Again, defended well, but it's a difficult one. I'm going to go with a 6. Purely because I know what Doyle can do. We've seen what he can do. And I don't think his play on the ball was as good as it has been in previous weeks. I'll go with a high 6, maybe. Kyle?
Yeah, I would say because he didn't make a critical error that led directly to a goal. None that I can remember. Maybe he did, but nothing that led to a direct goal-scoring opportunity. I'd say it's fair for him to stay at a 6. And I think we mentioned it, too, in those earlier pods. It's just like he's playing out of his mind, which is incredible to see. But eventually, it'll settle, right? He's young. He's obviously, as has been mentioned and well documented. But what he lacks at making those crossfield passes, he does play the ball really well up the field on the ground. A few times you take those first 10 yards and then just have a really nice, hard on the ground pass to Embleton or McGeady, who have great touch, who can just bring it down, and then it just kind of springs our attack. So I think a 6 is fair. Yeah, he's not making those worldly plays anymore, but it's, he's just solid. He's just very solid every single week. So 6 is fair.
And I suppose, Michael, it does kind of seem a little bit harsh that Sunderland have kind of defended for large parts of the second half, and come away with a win, and we're giving him a 6. But
that's
he's
because
played better.
Know what he's capable of, though, isn't it? That's the main reason. Like, we've seen better performances from Doyle. Put it this way: you'd rather have Doyle playing at a level of a 6 when you know he's capable of an 8 or a 9 than a Callum McFadzean who might occasionally get a 6 when we know he's a 1. So that's the big difference. I mean, like, I agree with the 6 rating. I think that's about fair. 1 or 2 times he looked a little bit nervous, but bearing in mind, again, Bolton are by far the best, like I said, best team, and they're probably the most physical team. Like, they've got a lot of like firepower and muscle in their side. So I think that Doyle probably felt that a bit. But in general, I thought when he had to defend, he did it, and just did the usual, bring the ball down and try to get it out from the back rather than just hoofing it, other than when you have to. So, can't disagree.
Yeah. Flanagan, again, I've went with a 6, and again, similar to Doyle. Well, I say similar to Doyle, not necessarily, because I think he was so frustrating watching him on the ball yesterday. There was times where, at least Doyle, when he got the ball, he would drive forward a little bit and play that forward pass. And there were so many times Flanagan got the ball from Doyle or from Hoffman, and he just stopped dead on the ball. You think, go 5 yards forward, play that pass, get us moving, and he would just go sideways or backwards. And I think towards the start of the season, he had cut that out a little bit. I think yesterday he did kind of regress that little bit. And I will add as well, I think he's the only footballer I've seen in a while that can do the most basic thing ever and get a huge cheer in the stadium. There was that turn, I think, he just chopped the ball past the attacker, got a massive roar. ultimately ended up giving the ball away and Bolton countered. But yeah, I'll say a 6 as well for Flanagan, Kyle.
Yeah, coming into this, I was thinking maybe a 7 or an 8 just because I was so happy to have him back. But now that you bring up those plays, I was like, oh, yeah, I do remember those. Yeah, 6. I would say it's just great to have him back. Great to have him back in that back line. I think he's just really well organized. And I think even Dan Neal was saying it too, how he is the team prankster a little bit and seems to be a really fun guy to have around. It's just knowing that sort of depth. That's why I love those interviews, by the way. It's just I love kind of getting that extra layer of depth for these players. It gets you a little bit more attached to them. And so I love having the old jokester out there, the Joker, Tom Flanagan, out there just
He
causing
doesn't look
chaos.
like much of a joker, though, does he? He looks like quite a bland character if you just saw him in the
Right.
street.
Right, yeah, and it's good for him. I think it's a lot of fun. But as far as play on the field, yeah, I think a 6 is probably pretty well warranted. But we did look more organized, which I really enjoyed. So I'd say a high 6.
Yeah, Michael.
For me, I would go slightly one up. I think 7. I thought having him back was a massive difference. And again, someone who was one of Flanagan's biggest critics recently, I've never thought I'd be saying that about him 2 months ago. I thought that Flanagan, in a defensive sense, was very good. I thought he showed Bolton out. I mean, maybe one occasion, he gave away a soft free kick. I think it was on the right, on Bolton's left or right hand side in the second half, which thankfully they did nothing from. But I think in general, he was positionally, I thought he was very good. I thought he defended when he had to, helped Callum Doyle out. Yeah, and obviously, look, I'm just going to give him a 7 for that spin that he did. That was just really, really shithouse. Sorry for me swearing, shithousery and fun to watch. It was brilliant. Keep it up, Flano.
Yeah. We'll move on to the left back, which was again Den Serkin, who did go off injured. And I don't actually know what he went off for. Obviously, there was a head collision earlier. I think it was a while after that he went off, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it has to be a concussion though, with how we were granted that 4th sub, and a lot of times those concussions, you get hit.
Well, I'm not actually sure how it works. I could be completely wrong on this, but I think obviously the Bolton player definitely came off worse. I think you might have seen the picture that I tweeted where he is quite literally covered in blood. Looked like something out of Final Destination. But I think if Bolton make that concussion sub, I think regardless what happens to the Sunderland player, I think they potentially get a substitute extra as well. I could be completely wrong on that, but
I don't think you
sure.
are. I think I got told that on my YouTube video.
Yeah, I think that's how it works. I mean, it would make sense. Otherwise, I suppose you could just abuse the concussion substitute rule.
Yeah, I think that whoever gets subbed off for a concussion does have to miss a game or two. And I think that's how it's balanced out. I could be totally wrong as well, but that would how it would make sense to me. It's like, sure, you can have this extra sub, but that player gets subbed off. If he is concussed, which I have had concussions before, and they are not fun at
pleasant.
all. No, yeah, gotta love American football, but it's just So I think we'll see Serkin out of the side, and I think not only is that a precaution, but I think that is just the rule for the next game or two. So
yeah. Could be completely wrong on that. We don't actually know. We're just kind of waffling a little bit on
tweet
that.
Tweet us angrily.
But on to his rating, I think again he's getting better with every game. Got up and down well. Got the assist for the goal. Great ball in. And I think defensively he's definitely improving as well. I remember the first game, he didn't really look sure what to do when he went 1-on-1 with a man. But I think yesterday he held his ground. Didn't really show him outside. Didn't really show him inside. It just stood him up, and he's made the tackle when the players try to advance past him. So again, I've went with an 8 for Serkin, Kyle.
Yeah, yep. God, I'm just agreeing with you on everything, but definitely an 8 as well. I think he does a lot of the same things that we've seen in the past from Hume, especially when it comes to attacking. It beat that first man, and you just immediately get inside and upfield. But he's just way more physical on the ball, and has a better final product, as we saw. And then defensively too, I remember when he's getting subbed off and just kind of seeing the definition of muscle in his quads and his legs. I mean, he's thick. Yeah, I mean, he definitely can throw his body
That's
around.
One way of describing it.
Right. So it's just I think he's just great for this level, and I think he can assist us going forward as well. I'm really glad he is a player we purchased rather than a loan. Not that loans are bad, but it's going to be fun to see him grow. I hope everything's fine with the concussion. And I think his replacement, Huggins, came on and played pretty well in his stead. So, really enjoyed what I saw from Serkin.
Yeah. And Michael, your rating for our thick left back?
8 as well. I think for me, if he'd been able to stay on the pitch fully, I mean, I would probably have given him man of the match. I mean, I might even contradict myself and still give him man of the match later. But regardless, it amazes me how much he continues to impress every game. He's getting better and better. We remember he's only, is he 19 years old?
It is,
sure he's
yeah.
only like a late teenager at this point.
Yeah.
And all I'll say, and as well, it's just one of my pet peeves is when a full back can't defend. It absolutely really drives me nuts how a fullback
Ironically,
can't
though,
defend.
that's a lot of fullbacks nowadays in football, isn't it?
Oh,
Even if you
yes,
look at
yeah,
like
oh,
Trent
yeah.
Alexander-Arnold at Liverpool, you know, he's a very good player, but defensively, that's probably his weakest
It's a
I know,
hybrid.
that's the thing.
attribute.
I just wonder, like, how can you be a part of a back line and not know how to defend? It just doesn't. It just baffles me. So when it comes to Sirkin, it's so refreshing for once to have a fullback who knows when to stop a cross, when to follow a man, when to grin the ball out, when to hoof it. It's just the basic things like that that make such a huge difference.
Yeah. Luke O'Nien, midfield. I've went with the 6, and I think part of that is just knocked down because of the yellow card that he got just before half time. You know, just completely needless. There was no need for it. And again, you know, I think it might have been Fleetwood. He got a yellow card in as well quite early in the game. Ultimately, it didn't actually affect, you know, his desire to go into tackles and this, that, and the other. And it didn't again yesterday. But just because it's just a needless yellow card, and that makes him, you know, one yellow closer to a suspension. I think he's on 4 now for the season. So obviously his next one will mean that he misses the whichever game comes after that yellow card. But you know, played some neat stuff. Gets around the pitch everywhere. You know, wherever you look up, he's there. He's running. He's chasing the ball down. Again in the walls again. But I've went with a 6, Kyle.
And again, I agree with you. And I think O'Nien is the typical. If he's on your team, you love him, but if you play against him, you just absolutely hate him because
Yeah.
he's so good at drawing those fouls. You know, he'll just at the last second get himself between the ball and the player, and he dives pretty well. I'll give him that. But yeah, you just hate. I'm sure the other teams are just hating him, but love to have him. Love to have him around, and I think he's a great personality. Really embodies kind of, you know, what the club wants to see out there is just somebody who just does not stop running, just run and run and run. So testament to the, you know, training staff and getting everybody in shape. But yeah, I think it's 6 just because outside of that, I don't think he didn't negatively impact and positively impact. So yeah, a 6.
Yeah, Michael.
Another hat trick, 6. I think 09 it's just that it's a typical 09 performance. I agree with you on the yellow card. It was needless because then, you know, it gives you that little bit of doubt, like, oh, if he gets another yellow, then he's sent off and gets a ban and so on. You just don't need to put yourself in that situation. But
O'Nien gets targeted a lot as well, I've noticed,
Mhm.
especially this
Yep.
season.
yeah,
You know,
he
obviously, he's got
draws
that
a lot
shoulder
of
injury as well.
fouls. Yeah, he draws a lot of physical contact in the game, doesn't he? I mean, I wonder whether people know about his pop shoulder, which is one thing that eventually that might have to get sorted, even if he doesn't want to stop playing for us. But the point is, I think he kept it going in midfield, and especially in a game like yesterday, that was when we really needed something like that. So
Yep.
you know what, he was a shit house, which I
Yeah.
absolutely adore. So yeah, fair enough.
Big shit house. You'd never guess that he came from Wickham, would you?
Guess it's
What
right.
makes
Yeah.
you say that, mate? What makes you say that?
Alongside him in midfield was again Daniel Neil. But I think yesterday he was quite annoyingly quiet. You know, I don't think he saw much of the ball. And again, Bolton, a very well organised team, didn't really allow the space in behind for the likes of Stewart or McGeady. And I think that's the type of games that Neil might struggle in because you know what Neil's capable of. He can play that threaded through ball. He can make that, you know, that long pass, that short pass. And I think the way Bolton set up, it kind of limited that a little bit. But on the occasion that he did have the ball, he was quite effective. So again, I went with a 6, Kyle.
Yeah, and I can't imagine anything outside of that. Just because, like you said, I think really he was marked out of the game, and I think with how his first few games of the season have gone, he's kind of been our star, I would say. You know, or at least the one who's getting the most hype and getting the interviews and things like that. Teams obviously read into that, and they know, you know, hey, let's try to mark him out of the game. And I honestly think it's okay that he doesn't have a blinder every single game because I'd be afraid that he'd be picked up by leagues above. So I'm okay with him being a little bit more quiet. He helped back a lot, you know, with Sirkin a lot of those times. Sirkin kind of hold him up. Daniel will just kind of come in and just kind of bite at the ankles a little bit and try to get that ball back. So I think he played his role fine. Didn't get out of position. But yeah, I can't imagine you can give really anything outside of a 6.
Yeah, Michael.
Likewise. I think
Yep.
I can't. The thing is, this is the disadvantage of going last is that I think you two pretty much make all the articulate the waffle on. All I'll say probably is that I think for I think for Cheltenham, obviously our next game, I think he's going to have a bit more joy in a game like that than he will against Bolton, because again, like Bolton now a very, very aggressive side and a physical one. So there you go.
Yeah. Pritchard obviously came in for Gooch. He played the time against Wigan as well. Started today, and I think at times he does show that he is a very neat player, but I don't think he saw enough of the ball again, similar to Neil, to make too much of a difference. I think Bolton were a very physical, very big side, and don't think I'm out of place to say he doesn't really match that. Should have obviously scored in the second half, hit it at the keeper from what must have been 5 yards. He's got to score that, and I think if he scores that, it's a completely different game. And I think he'd probably breathe a sigh of relief a lot quicker than we did yesterday. So I've went with a 5 out of 10 for Pritchard. Kyle?
Yeah. I mean, you could probably talk me into that. Maybe I'm just nice and I'll give him a 6. But I think this was a situation where Johnson was like, hey, it's time to, here's your opportunity. And I don't think, and I'm sure Pritchard knows too, he didn't take full advantage of it. Not enough to warrant changing the formation moving forward. I mean, formation is kind of the same, but moving Embleton a little bit out wide, having Pritchard be the guy in the middle. I think he's busy. I think he's really good on the ball. I think he's quick. He did press their keeper really well. Because some of their back passes were just terrible. So I like that about him. But yeah, I think that was his opportunity to really make things a lot more difficult on Johnson. I don't think he took it. So, you could probably talk me into a 5 there. That I think it just had to, in his position where he's not a regular starter, he had to make a game-changing play, and he had the opportunities but didn't take it.
Michael?
I'd probably go with a 6 just because I'm taking John's place as the leader of the 6-man club.
Someone's got to do it.
I think first half, I think Pritchard actually showed quite a bit of promise. I thought he got himself about the pitch. He tried to get things, he was linking things up and moving things forward. But ultimately, what stops him getting a higher rating is that chance at the start of the second half, where had he scored that, well, based on last week, I might have drawn 2-2. But in a go 2-0 up, it just instantly relieves a lot more pressure. And from that close range, he should be scoring. So, 6, but he could have been higher. But like you said, that sort of game doesn't really suit Pritchard. He just kept getting fouled, and I think he got bullied a few times, which I think you could definitely tell, considering Bolton's players wanted to rival Accrington's for tallest side I've ever seen plus play against.
That I think it's Santos, isn't it, at the back for Portland? He's some size.
Yeah.
He is. Elliot Embleton, again, I think very similar to Embleton. I think his decision making wasn't quite decisive enough for large parts of the game, and found himself kind of losing possession because of it. I said the same against Fleetwood. It was a couple of times he was played through on goal, and he's tried the shot and just slowed down a little bit and lost the ball. Ultimately, never got in the same position yesterday, but it was the same sense, kind of slowed up with the ball a little bit, wasn't sure which decision to go with, and lost the ball. So I went with a 6 for Embleton, purely one higher than Pritchard because he didn't miss a sitter. Kyle?
And I just can't really remember much of his impact at all. I think I do remember the one, that he got in the box and it was just a little bit wide. And I think that's just fine. I think this is why we're all kind of where we are in the league, or in the pyramid, I guess, is that consistency is really hard, especially with the team like Bolton. I think we're going to kind of touch on that with these final 3 ratings, but their back line really just marked our attacking players out of the game. I mean, they didn't have really any air to breathe. So, I can't really justify anything more than 6. I could almost even go 5, but I don't remember him doing anything negative either. So there you go.
Yeah. Michael?
See, I probably would go with a 5. I think but again, I think it's similar. Your principle with Callum Doyle is kind of mine with Embleton here, because I know Embleton is capable of better. But again, as we've touched on, I think Bolton did mark him out of the game. And bear in mind, he was shifted into a wide position as well, which I think we can looking at it, he suits the attacking midfield role a lot better. That's where his goals have come from. That's where he's got his assists from. So I think that was probably his quietest game that I've seen. But it's not a slight, because I think we know that he'll want to be better than that.
Yeah. McGeady on the... I think he was on the right-hand side, wasn't he, yesterday, again. But again, similar to Pritchard, similar to Embleton, just didn't really have any involvement in the game. A lot of the times that he was called in action was in a defensive sense. And again, we mentioned that earlier, but again, just didn't really get into the game much. So 6 for me again, Kyle.
Yeah, yep, 6. Just couldn't really put his stamp on the game. And yeah, I think he's just an interesting one moving forward because especially with Dijaku wasn't, extremely impressive, but showed a little bit more pace, showed a little bit more, fearlessness going forward. And I think McGeady has settled into that role of slowing things down a little bit. And I think that's going to help us in the long run. Like I said, I think McGeady's best play is going to come toward the end of the season as long as he can stay in shape. So we just got to stick with it. So steady 6 for McGeady.
Yeah, Michael, 6 club or not?
Have a guess.
I'm saying yes.
Yeah. Yeah. But again, you have done it again. You steal all the articulate points, and I can only just agree with you and just nod me head. But yeah, I'll try and put a spin. Like Kyle said, I think later on there are going to be times when McGeady slowing the game down actually will help us. And I think yesterday was one of those moments when we were up against a side that was throwing everything at it. But he just doesn't seem to be able to impact games as much. And part of that might be down to his age. He's lost a yard of pace, and it might even get to a point where McGeady is going to be more of an impact sub than a starter. But he's he's not a bad option. He's an option that every club in this league would love to have.
Yeah, definitely. Moving on to the last player, although I do want to kind of talk about one more as well. Ross Stewart, again, worked hard, work rate was good, hold-up play was decent at times, but as a striker, you're kind of based on your goals, and obviously he didn't get one yesterday, mainly down to no fault of his own. I think our creativity and our creative players were definitely singled out of the game and limited what we could do in the final third. So, again, 6, I suppose, Kyle.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and concede to Michael. Michael, go ahead. The floor, the floor is yours.
All right then. 6 club, but it's the same. It's again another principle, same as Doyle and Bolton for me. That because he's better than that. But to be fair, he's got 5 goals this season, so we'll let him off.
Yeah, you can go on then, Kyle.
Agreed. Yeah, that's it basically.
Agree and nod your head.
Yep.
That's my job. Stop nicking it.
Yeah.
The last player that I'll kind of touch on a little bit is obviously Dayaku. Probably the first time most of us have seen him play. He did play against Wigan, albeit with the bloody rules and stuff. You can't actually watch the game unless you are a very lucky person, mentioning no names. But there was the first real chance that we got to see him. There was a chance that he had in the second half where he's reminds me a little bit of Gooch, to be honest. In the chance that he had, he cut past one player, cut past him again, cut past him again, tried to cut past another player, and ultimately lost the ball. He had the shot in the dying stages of the game that went over the bar. But I think he showed promise, and I think he is going to be a valuable player again. You look at Serkin first few games since he signed for us, he wasn't great. There was a lot of area for improvement, and I think with the game time he's played in pretty much every game since he signed, bar maybe one. He's definitely improved. He's improving each game, and I think Dayaku is a player that'll do the same as well. I think that's his first league game in England, obviously his second in the country altogether. You can only get better from there, but there was signs of promise there, Michael.
Yeah, there was. I mean, I did that. That chance when he skinned someone basically 3 or 4 times and then didn't shoot was really frustrating. But I think you could tell there's definitely an element of class with him, and I think you could tell that he's been at Bayern Munich previously. I'm not saying that he's going to be of Champions League standard, although if he did, that would be very nice.
Yeah, would.
But no pressure. There is promise with him, but obviously, like you said, it's his first proper taste of League One action. So I think it's going to take time for him to mature and settle into things properly. But I think once he does, hopefully he'll be a hell of a player and a real asset to use in this division.
Yeah, and just a little bit on Kyle there, a little bit on Dayaku.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you the player I think he's great for that outlet pass late in games, because it's a lot of times when teams are pressing, if we have the lead, it puts him in one-on-one situations. And we saw he did try to pull off a few moves that he's just going to have to know that if you try to pass the ball and then run around a League One defender, they're just going to clock you, basically. Yeah. So, but just like you said, you might be, was it, and I can't believe I'm already forgetting this, the loanee we had from
Januzaj. Rangers. Oh, no, Jordan Jones. I was just immediately thinking you were going to say Januzaj there for some reason.
No. No, a little bit of Jordan Jones in kind of that stature and build. He's got pace. He's got the trick to him, but just needs that finishing edge. And I think he'll learn from that, obviously. But I think he's fun to have. It's a good option with him. And then we also have the likes of Broadhead as well.
Yeah.
So more headaches for Johnson, but I think this is good. And eventually those types of players will put those games away, and we just have to hope that we see that.
Yeah. Winchester, man of the match for me. Michael, I'll go to you second.
I would have gone with Cirkin had he stayed on the pitch the whole 90, but as he didn't, obviously, I don't know if that's a criteria I should really be judging him on, but screw it. Yeah, Winchester. It's either one of them, but I'll go Winchester because he got the match winner.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And Kyle, same for you, yeah.
Yep. Winchester all day. It's funny. I was driving around. Had to work a little bit yesterday, and I found myself on Winchester Road. So I felt like it was just very fitting. So there you go.
Was it a very classy road, was it?
Oh yeah, the nicest paved road you could ever imagine.
I'm saying you need to put Shaun of the Dead on now because it feels very relevant.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Blow over.
Pretty much, yes.
Well, we are back at home in 2 days, or yesterday, as Lee Johnson said, 48 hours, which was just a testament as to how much added time there was that would missed a day. But no confusion, it is on Tuesday night, not on Monday night. Another home game this time against Cheltenham, who I haven't checked the league table, so I'm not entirely sure where they are.
They're around 14th, I think, somewhere in mid-table.
Yeah. A similar position to Fleetwood, I think, aren't they?
Actually, hold on. I'll have a look properly.
I believe Fleetwood were around the same when we played them, at least.
Yeah. For their 3-3-3. So there
you
go.
Go. Well, Kyle's just Stormy Thunder there. Yeah, they're 14th, 12 points.
Yep.
It'll be a good game. But another home game, and another one that we will be looking to win. Predictions for that one, Michael?
3-1 Sunderland. I think we're going to have a bit more joy in this game. I mean, Cheltenham are going to have the sort of newly promoted buzz, and I don't know if this is the first time they'll have ever played us in a league fixture. It wouldn't surprise me if it is. So if that is the case, they're obviously, we know what they're going to be like. It's going to be the typical, they're going to be up for it, which I can't blame them for because that's what a lot of teams are like. But I think if Sunderland want to get into the top 2, these are the sort of games you need to be really sweeping aside, or at least just getting 3 points. So I'd say 3-1. I think we'll have a bit more attacking joy in this game.
Yeah. Kyle, for you?
Yeah, I agree with Phil. I think it'll be 2-0. And I think this will be the week that we can kind of look back on and say, okay, this is when that first gap was created at the top. Because it's right now there's 4 at the top. There's Plymouth at 18, MK Dons at 18, and then us and Wigan with 19. And then everybody else in the middle is 12, 12, 12, 12, 13, 14. So this should be the week, I think, where if we can get a win, I think things will start to separate a little bit. And then we just have to keep pushing on.
Yeah. And now that Michael mentioned it, I've tried to look at to see when the last time Sunderland did play Cheltenham was, but it's very confusing, so I'm not entirely sure when it was. But I think they have played before. I'm not sure. I'm not sure, to be honest. This does not seem very accurate, but who knows? Someone will know out there whether we did play them in the league one time or not. But ultimately, that is the time we have for today. I'll let you both go and enjoy your afternoon, Michael, and your morning, Kyle.
Yeah, that coffee's calling my name.
Once again, we'll hopefully be back on Wednesday, providing people are around to talk about the game and talk about hopefully another win and hopefully another clean sheet and hopefully the first absolute hammering of the season. But until then,
we'll back top of the league.
Hopefully we do. I'm not sure who we're going to play now. I'm not sure if you know.
Sheffield.
They're playing Sheffield Wednesday.
Yep. Is that at home or away? I presume away.
It's at Wigan.
Ooh.
Although, to be fair, I do see that being a tough game for them, mind. So
it should be. It should be. We'll see about that. I'll put a draw on my accumulator. Feeling like a draw, a 1-1.
That's fine as long as we go back top. I don't care.
Absolutely. Yep. We'll go top this week and stay there for the rest of the season. Sounds all right.
Deal.
Absolutely. But until then, until Wednesday, we will see you later.
That's all, folks.